Welcome to the Magic Mirror Podcast. I'm your host, Khan, the Trinket Mage, and with me is my co-host, 33 Elk.
Hello.
Snail is still out sick. Again, wishing him the best. We didn't kick him off the podcast. He'll be back at some point.
Yeah, he's been destroyed.
Yeah. He's having some bad luck there, but hopefully he'll be back soon. Today's episode is going to be all about Planeswalkers in Commander. And then afterwards, we're going to get into the question zone, which is our section where we answer viewer questions. But in the previous episode, we had you, the viewers, vote on some changes. And those will go into effect starting then, so stick around. But before we get into all that, I need to thank our sponsor, Card Castle, the easy way to sort your collection digitally. You can start scanning your collection today and get one free month of premium if you use our link in the description. Thanks to Card Castle for sponsoring the podcast. Okay, so I was thinking we start with the big one first, right?
Yeah, should Planeswalkers be commanders?
Exactly. So, I guess I'll hear your yes or no first, and then I'll give mine, and then we can talk about it.
Honestly, so it's really hard for me to say yes, but it's because I'm like a Luddite. And I'm like, I hate change. There's no like real like fiber. So I guess the answer is like, yeah, I guess Planeswalkers should be commanders. And the simple reason being, I really don't think most of them are that mechanically game breaking. There are a couple caveats to this yes. I think the first major thing that comes to mind that has been mentioned in past by Melissa Del Tora, a person who works at Wizards of the Coast. This was on Gavin Verhey's podcast about commander design. She was specifically talking about Freyleys, I believe. Please feel free to correct me. But she said very plainly that she doesn't really like seeing removal in the command zone, and a lot of Planeswalkers have removal stapled onto them. And I definitely see that as like a pretty valid argument. I don't think it should be that populated, just like having an always access to like a hate piece in the command zone. I feel like that's like the first major thing that like blares in my mind when I think of Planeswalkers as commanders. You know what I mean?
I totally forgot Freyleys can destroy an artifact or enchantment in the command zone.
Yeah, and we have Grist recently too. I say recently, but like more recently in terms of like commanders that can be, or Planeswalkers that can be commanders. So like Grist is removal in the command zone as well. And I mean, we get removal in the command zone all the time, but the thing is like, it should be sparing. Adding commanders into the zone gives a whole glut of that just directly into Magic.
I also think Planeswalkers are perfectly fine as commanders. There's a lot of them that can be your commander, and they're pretty much okay. I don't really see why, most of these are pretty not good anyway as cards. So I don't see why they shouldn't be in the command zone. The removal in the command zone is an interesting argument, but the thing about most Planeswalkers is their removal is a minus, meaning it's somewhat limited or slow.
All right, there's a guy out there.
we'll talk about Oko. It's fine. We can talk about Oko. But like in general, like when you're thinking all the Obnixiluses that just minus to like blow up a creature or whatever, they can only do that like once, maybe twice, and then they have to stop. Whereas there are like actual legendary creatures you can put in the command zone that are repeatable removal that just go every single turn pretty easily. So I think it's like, I don't know, it's not that much different than a lot of other things that are removal in the command zone.
Yeah, that's a totally fair thing to say. It's just like it adds a whole lot more just all at once.
Yeah, most of it's fine, though.
Yeah, of course.
Some people will probably complain about like Sorin Markov, I guess.
Yeah, Sorin Markov is one that definitely comes to mind as a card that has some play pattern issues coming from the command zone. Just like coming down and then just like you are at 10 life points now.
Yeah, he sets a player to 10. Although you could argue like, does Slicer kind of do that?
Slicer kills people from the command zone. It's fair.
So, like, I don't know. And that's my big argument for almost any planeswalker you can point at. You can point at any planeswalker and go, hey, this is a powerful thing you can do. And I can point at a legendary creature that does the same thing, but better.
Yeah. Oh man, Ashiok Dream Render though. I would love that in the command zone. That's the one that spells and abilities your opponents control can't cause their controller to search their library. And then it also has Grave Hate on the minus.
Yeah, that one's sweet. I think when a lot of people talk about like, oh, how dangerous or scary planeswalkers are in the command zone, a lot of people immediately talk about doubling season, right?
Yeah.
Because, doubling season plus your commander would then double the counters and you might be able to ultimate immediately. Yeah. But if you actually look at the planeswalkers that are in green such that you could play doubling season, the best one is probably Tameo Field Researcher, which is draw 3 plus an Omniscience as her ultimate. And she does ultimate instantly if you have doubling season play. That is the most efficient, strongest doubling season combo with planeswalkers. And that is a 6-mana enchantment followed up by your 4-mana commander. And you kind of have to do it that way, right? Because if you cast Tameo first, she's probably going to get attacked, or you also have to block her. It's more difficult. So if you actually want to do the Wombo combo, you need to drop your 6-mana enchantment first. And then you realize, well, there's actually just a lot of like legendary creatures in the command zone that combo with one a card, and they usually do it much better. Doubling season is not any scarier than any other 2-card combo, like, Veto or whatever, plus the, I always forget, Sanguine Bonds, Exquisite Blood, whatever the other thing is. Yeah, like that's honestly a better combo because you can cast Veto early and he's not going to get attacked and taken out. You just get to have him sit out there.
Yeah, I mean, there is an argument for it is a little bit more annoying because like Veto, like, Sanguine Bond, you at least win the game automatically. With auto ulting a planeswalker, they get an emblem right away, and the game isn't necessarily over most of the time in that situation, but it's it's a little annoying because it's basically over. But it's not. But it's basically over. Depends on the ult.
It depends on the ult, right? Like, there's some of them that are just like big anthems, and you just board wipe them, and then they don't actually even win the game. It's just good. I guess.
But this argument also hinges on basically untapping with doubling season, or somehow having like 11 mana in play. So, yeah, like overall, like there's most planeswalkers power level wise are fine to be in the command zone. I feel I feel like there might be some play pattern issues along with them. We did both mention pre-podcast that there was a commander or a planeswalker that if commanders could be planeswalkers could be commanders, we'd be a little bit like iffy on. And I am very curious if we have the same one in mind.
Yeah. Okay. So there's one that I think probably people would really complain about and could be tricky. And then there's one that I think is the real answer that's like kind of scary.
I am in the same exact boat. There are two that I have, but one's kind of like the first one that comes to mind, and the second one's like a sleeper that I feel like most people wouldn't pick up on.
Okay. All right. Let's say the number one we think would probably get banned if they became commanders. Let's just say it on 3 and see if we got the same one.
All right.
1, 2, 3.
Narset Parter Veils.
Okay. Yeah, okay.
Yeah, no. Leovold's banned for this reason, for preventing card draws that are like bonus card draws. Hull Breacher got banned for having flash and preventing bonus card draws and being 3 mana. Narset from the command zone would be annoying, and then Wheels would seal the deal. Like it's a 2-card combo with any Wheels, and she also digs for those Wheels. So I could definitely foresee it being banned, and in fact, I could see it being CEDH viable. But it'd probably be fringe. It wouldn't be like the best deck, but still, like it would be annoying. It would not be a fun play pattern. It would be decently strong. It has a lot going for it.
Narset is in CEDH, I play Narset with Wheels. Like that is just a thing and it wins games. Guess what? Like, oh, surprise, surprise. It's really strong.
Yeah.
Narset hates on Ristic Study. It's so good. This card's so strong.
I am curious if we're on the same wavelength for the second option that we have.
Okay, all right. Should we do the 13 one again? 3, 2, 1.
Jace
Teferi.
Ooh.
Oh. Wait, you're going to say Wielder of Mysteries?
Jace Wielder of
sucks
Mysteries.
In the command zone. No.
So I don't think the card's going to be strong. I think the card's going to just like promote very miserable deck building.
Like what? You play Jace Wielder of Mysteries,
Jace
98 Islands, and Mana Severance?
Yeah, Mana Severance, or you can do Leveler. It curves into Leveler.
That's funny. What are you talking about? Okay, I have my Jace Wielder of Mysteries in play. I'm going to cast my Leveler now. And then in response, somebody hero downfalls your Jace, kills it, and then you exile your own library.
Okay.
That's funny.
That is a very good point. That we'll get to later when we're talking about commanders, I keep saying commanders and planeswalkers interchangeably here. When you talk about planeswalkers in general and commander. But no, I respect the Teferi shout. Are you specifically talking about Time Raveler or the...
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, so before we get into Teferi, I had a friend of mine who, we played Oathbreaker for a bit, and he showed up to one of our Oathbreaker pods with Jace Wielder of Mysteries, and then, so Oathbreaker, if people don't know, it's like Commander, but it's 20 life, 4 players. You have a Planeswalker in the command zone and an instant or sorcery as a signature spell that like your commander has to be in play to cast. It's a weird format. It's kind of fun, but it's odd. Anyway, he played Jace Wielder Mysteries. His spell was Mana Severance, which exiles all the lands in your deck, and then he had only lands for the rest of his deck.
Yeah.
And if you couldn't, on turn 5, it would win the game. Unless somebody did anything. And then he just lost.
Yeah. You could technically have up to 2 non-land spells in your deck alongside Mana Severance, because he does mill you for 2 on the plus before drawing you the card.
That's true. Yeah, you could play like 1 counter spell.
You could have Force of Will and blue card.
Yeah. That's funny. Teferi Time Raveler, though, this card is really powerful. This card is crazy strong. So it's blue-white 1 for a 4 loyalty planeswalker. Each opponent may only cast spells anytime they could cast a sorcery. So this is very annoying for many, many reasons. It protects all your combos because your opponents can't do anything. It also combos itself with
Displacer Kitten and a 0-drop rock.
Yes, because he can minus to like draw something and bounce things to hand. But sorry, the thing I was thinking of was what's it called? Knowledge Pool.
Oh yeah, Knowledge Pool is annoying. Yeah.
Right. So if you've ever seen the old Creature Teferi, Knowledge Pool combos with that one as well, where it makes it so your opponents can only cast spells at sorcery speed. Knowledge Pool is a weird card that has people like share spells from each other's decks that are in exile underneath it. It's a silly Magic card.
Yeah, the long and short, though, is you can't cast spells.
Exactly.
Because you need to do it at instant speed with the Knowledge Pool.
Mm-hmm. So with Teferi in play and Knowledge Pool, your opponents can't cast anything other than their commander. It's a pretty strong combo. And in Mono Blue, it's like decently powerful. But with Teferi Time Raveler in the command zone, you are in blue-white. Significantly better than being in Mono Blue. You could play like a humility control deck with this. It would be really powerful. I think you could make a super like oppressive Teferi Time Raveler control list.
Oh yeah, and then also like I mentioned before, Displacer Kitten. So Displacer Kitten, it's probably a little bit more fair because it's just a 4-drop creature, which is pretty difficult. And you do need a second piece. But Displacer Kitten says whenever you cast a non-creature spell, exile target non-land permanent you control and return to the battlefield under its owner's control. So with Displacer Kitten and any 0-drop artifact, you can play the 0-drop artifact, flicker your Teferi, -3 to the Teferi on the 0-drop artifact, return it to hand, play it, and then that's an infinite loop of drawing cards. If it's a rock that can go mana positive, like a Mox Amber or a Soul Ring, you can go infinite mana as well during that loop.
Yeah. Teferi just has like, it's a really powerful against other control decks. It's a powerful combo piece. It's also just good early game to like cast, bounce something that's annoying and draw a card. And then being able to cast sorceries at flash speed is pretty useful. You plus him, you cast Supreme Verdict at instant speed. It's just a good card. The card's, I mean, I think everybody knows this card is strong, right?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Do you have, before we move off this topic of what if planeswalkers were commanders, is there one that would particularly excite you to have in the command zone?
Yeah, Deck Faden.
Oh yeah, Deck Faden would be hilarious. Really annoying if you're playing an artifact deck though.
Yeah, so Dak Faden lets you like target player draws two, discards two, which oh man, I remember playing this with like Notion Thief because you force
Yeah.
someone to draw two. It's so cool. And then you can minus two steal an artifact, which with things like not Mycosynth Lattice, I guess Mycosynth Lattice. One of the things that turns your opponent's stuff into artifacts, you can then just steal things. And then the emblem is cool. Whenever you cast a spell that targets one or more permanents, you gain control of those. He just steals things, has some artifacty kind of synergies. It's a cool card. I just think it's sweet. It'd be fun in the command zone.
Yeah. For me, it would probably be Lolth, Spider Queen. I love that
That's a
card
cool
so
one.
much. It's so cool. It's from Adventures in the Forgotten Realms. It's 3 black black for 4 loyalty planeswalker. She doesn't have a plus ability. Her +0 is you draw a card and lose a life. Her -3 is you make 2/2/1 black spider creatures with menace and reach. And her -8 is one of the most interesting abilities in the game to me. You get an emblem with whenever an opponent is dealt combat damage by one or more creatures you control. If that player lost less than 8 life this turn, they lose life equal to the difference. So if you hit someone with a creature and they take 3 damage, they'll lose 5 life. So it becomes 8. Get it, spiders, 8 legs, whatever. But her static ability is also funny. Whenever a creature you control dies, put a loyalty counter on Lolth Spider Queen. So you'd have like a deck full of these like little black weenies, like little evasive creatures, and then you would like sacrifice 4 of them after playing Lolth, -8 hurt, and then you start putting on the hurt by hitting people with them, which I just find so charming and very fun.
Yeah, I think she's pretty sweet, and you can set it up so you can actually get that emblem if you like have enough sack fodder. It'd be pretty cool. I think that'd be a fun commander.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Anyway, we didn't just want to talk about commanders, planeswalkers, etc. We wanted to also just talk about in general planeswalkers as a theme in Commander or as cards in Commander.
Yeah, have you ever built like a dedicated planeswalker deck?
I've brewed it a couple of times, mainly in mono white, with like I tried to build like a planeswalker toolbox deck with I think the name is Jeru with eyes open. It's a
Oh yeah.
it's a 5 mana creature that says when it enters the battlefield, you get to search your library for a planeswalker and put it in your hand, then shuffle. White has some really cool planeswalkers like the Eternal Wanderer is a board wipe, Elspeth is a board wipe. There's a lot of board wipes. A Johnny's a board wipe. So there's a variety of options there. I could go list through all of them, but it's a really fun sort of like toolboxy kind of way to build a mono white deck.
I haven't really built a dedicated planeswalker deck. I have built a few of the planeswalkers that can be your commander. And those decks did have more planeswalkers than my like regular lists that have 0. I built a Dehada list. Dehada Binder of Wills, she's got a lot of text on her. She's a Mardu legend that can be your commander. Mardu Planeswalker that can be your commander. But I really played her just for the -3.
Yeah, to make treasure.
Yes, so it's flip the top 4 cards of your library. You can put the legends into your hand, and then you can put any number of legends into your hand, specifically any number. And then the rest go to the graveyard. You make a treasure for each one that goes to the graveyard. So you could essentially always make 4 treasures. And the way the deck worked was, here's the curve. Turn 2, you play some 2-mana rock. Turn 3, you cast your commander. You -3 and make 4 treasures. Then next turn, you now have 8 mana before your land drop, right? That gives you enough mana to cast a Yackelhops, a Obliterate, Cataclysm, any of these like huge stacks effects. And then you play your land drop and you continue on, and then you +2 her, and then you could -3 to make 4 more mana. And it was just a really powerful stacks deck because she generates so much mana. It's like ridiculous. You just get to make 4 treasures. So like you can blow up all the lands and it doesn't hurt you. You just make a ton of mana. Honestly, outside of stacks decks, I don't really play planeswalkers very much. They're really good as stacks pieces.
Yes.
Because
yeah, absolutely.
they don't need mana.
Yeah, so for me, I think planeswalkers generally, if you just put a planeswalker in your deck, they're a little bit weak. Unless you have like some synergistic thing. Like what comes to mind for me is Tezzeret the Seeker, right? Like I have a specific artifact I'm looking for. I'm an artifact toolbox deck. I'm going to play Tezzeret the Seeker. I'm going to -X him, get the artifact, whatever. So yeah, Tezzeret has an artifact tutor on him. That's like a good example of a planeswalker effect that is good enough to just be playable. Another one is the Tyvar Jubilant Brawler, whose passive effect is the same thing as Thousand Year Elixir, which is creatures you control can tap as though they had haste right away. You can activate their abilities immediately. So Mana Dorks tap right away, stuff of this nature. Like these are both really strong cards that just impact the board immediately, do something great. They're basically sorceries almost. Where it starts to get a little bit more iffy in Commander is if you have a Planeswalker as a sort of value engine. I'm thinking like a Jace the Mind Sculptor kind of deal. Because most decks play creatures. And those creatures can attack your Planeswalkers. And there's 3 opponents that are going to do so if you have a Jace the Mind Sculptor or whatever value engine sort of commander in play. And that's where you really see the weakness of Planeswalkers in Commander, which is if you try to get incremental value off of a Planeswalker, you better hope you have a way to either protect your Planeswalker or that your opponents are not on creature decks. Like, I could see a world where all 3 of your opponents are on control or something strange, and just none of their instants and sorceries deal with Planeswalkers. You mentioned Hero's Downfall earlier, which said destroy target creature or Planeswalker. There's a lot of removal that just says target creature, and it doesn't target Planeswalkers. And I could see a world where the removal lines up in your opponent's decks where they just can't deal with the Planeswalker if they can't attack it. So those situations, a Planeswalker can feel really strong, but I think generally they're pretty weak without a lot of support.
Yeah, I agree. I think outside of Tezzeret the Seeker, which is one of the, I play Tezzeret the Seeker in my artifact deck, and I have no real ways to protect it. I barely have any creatures. But I cast Tezzeret, and then I use it as a tutor immediately, and if it dies, that's fine, I'm happy, I just cast an artifact tutor, essentially.
Oh, yeah.
So any Planeswalker where you can, the Eternal Wanderer, right, that has a board wipe tied to it, you can cast it, do your, board wipe effect, and if, the Planeswalker dies, whatever, you gotta...
Yeah, and if you untap, it's gravy.
Exactly. I think that's how you should be thinking about most Planeswalkers. Now, there are some situations where you set up the board such that your Planeswalker then clutches the game up for you. So I recently picked up a copy of Elspeth's Son's Champion. The one that +1s to make 3 soldiers. It blows up all creatures with power 4 or greater, and then you can get an emblem that buffs your board. I'm going to be adding that to my Heliod deck. I have my Heliod control list. Because once the game goes late and I have a humility in play, Elspeth is a game winner, right? If every creature is a 1/1, the fact that she poops out 3 1/1s every single turn is massive, and I can just outpace the amount of 1/1s you have, and
and then the emblem goes over top.
Exactly, the emblem will go over top, and I will just crush you with that. So you can use them as finishers in a control shell, but most decks are not hard control decks that want a finisher like that, so I really just wouldn't run Planeswalkers in most decks. We mentioned Oko earlier. So I tested out Oko recently-ish in my Tormod Thrasios list, just playing him as removal. You cast it, you +1, you turn someone's commander into an elk. It's funny. They're a 3/3 elk. No relation. Or yes relation, I guess.
Yeah. So Oko is a very strong card. But it's strongest in 1v1 where you play this on turn 3 and you plus it and your opponent only has so many creatures and it's just impossible.
Or on turn 2 with a Mana Dork.
Yeah, it's just impossible to kill 8 loyalty, and then you have a food, and then now it's a 3/3 elk that can block and protect Oko, and then you just keep plussing Oko, and I remove your threat, or I make another food, or every other turn you get a 3/3. That's the most powerful situation for Oko, is in that 1v1 situation. However, in Commander, it's still decently strong. I mean, people play Rapid Hybridization, people play Beast Within. Now those hit, the Beast Within hits any permanent, and they're both instant speed. But if you can keep an Oko alive and get 2-3 elks out of it, incredible, great job. You have successfully made you've made Oko good in Commander. I think the second or third elk is where Oko really starts to shine.
I think it's definitely decent against certain decks that rely super ultra heavily on their commander, and you can just turn it, transform it into a 3/3 elk, and then they have to have their commander die and recast it to be able to like actually get it back.
Oh yeah.
Which can be tricky because right, they can attack with it and then people can just choose not to block and they can be stuck with an elk. Just like me on this podcast.
Oh, terrible, I know. Yeah, no, but I definitely think Oko's strong in Commander. It's not game breaking, but it is very, very good to, of course, once you get your second, third elk, like I said, you've made your card back.
Yeah, I found it to be kind of just okay, to be honest, in Commander. It was sort of like, it's fine. I actually don't think he's that great.
Oh yeah,
it's okay.
He is terminally fine.
Okay, last individual commander I want to bring up here for this discussion.
Or Planeswalker. You did what I did.
Yes. Whoops. Last Planeswalker I want to bring up here. Karn the Great Creator. So, two quick things. I need to say this quickly. For all the people listening, no, you cannot get cards out of your sideboard with Karn in Commander. In Commander, there is technically no sideboard. You are not grabbing legendary things or artifacts out of your sideboard.
Yeah.
But this card is...
It's an Olrod.
A powerful combo piece. Yeah. Or no, it's not even just a powerful combo piece, right? It's a one-sided Stony Silence, which is really powerful.
Oh, yeah.
The Stony Silence has a real downside, right? Like your mana rocks are also turned off, even if you're not an artifact deck. But then also it's a combo piece, because if you play Mycosynth Lattice, turn everything into artifacts, your opponent's lands now have no abilities, and they can't tap for mana.
Yeah, well, they have abilities. You just have to forlornly look at them and not be able to activate them, which is better.
Correct. Yes. I don't know. What do you think of Great Creator in EDH?
Yeah, so Karn's an interesting design, and by that I mean he's egregious. So Karn is definitely more problematic once again in 1v1 formats. Karn is... I love him, to be clear. I was like a prison aficionado. Karn is hilarious. But
oh yeah, Prisontron is my like modern deck that I play. So fun. It's so cool.
Yeah. Karn, for people at home, once again, one-sided Stony Silence. You can't activate abilities of artifacts. The +1 is to turn an artifact into an artifact creature with power and toughness equal to its mana value. So with a liquid coating, you can turn an opponent's land into an artifact. They can't activate the abilities of it, and then you can plus on it to make it into a 0/0 that dies right away. And then lastly, its -2 isn't entirely dead in Commander, because it does reference outside the game, but it also references exile. So if any of your things get exiled, any of your artifacts that is, you can return them from exile using Karn. So if someone exiles your indestructible The One Ring, you can bring it right back into play. Which is why you should always run Unravel the Aether and Deglamour, which shuffle things instead of exile. Anyway, yeah, no, I hate Karn. It's really annoying to play against, but it is a good card. It's very strong as a Planeswalker. Of course, once again, it is a Planeswalker, so it can be beaten to death.
All right, Elk, I got a question for you.
Yes.
If a new player came to you and said, "Hey, I like Planeswalkers. Should I build a dedicated Super Friends Planeswalker deck?" What would you say to them?
I would say, no, you can't. You shouldn't do anything you like in this game.
Yeah, then we beat them up.
No, of course. If someone was like, hey, listen, I want to play a Planeswalker deck, what do I do? My honest answer would be probably like Karth the Lion, which pays you when your Planeswalkers die, because your Planeswalkers will die a lot. And that's just, part of the fun of Planeswalkers, unless you're like doing some cringe double seasoning, instant ulting stuff. Which, fair on you if that's what you want to do, right? There's no other format for that. So yeah, no, generally I would say play Super Friends decks. You need to keep a watchful eye on them. Like, you need to make sure that you're throwing a punch their way every so often. If you're just playing in a really passive game where I'm just not going to attack with my creatures and whatever, that's the situation where Planeswalker decks can really like actually just run away with the game. Oh, man, I have a little like pet peeve with Planeswalker decks, and to some extent Saga decks. There's just so many damn words on these cards, and sometimes there's like 15 Sagas or like 15 Planeswalkers in play. I just like tune out. I'm like, listen, Unless someone planar cleanses here, I'm just gonna like zone out. Like I cannot be bothered to track every single ability on all these planeswalkers. That's the one thing that kind of gets under my skin about planeswalkers. And they're not even that strong. They're not even good. But it's just like, oh man, there's just so many words on the table. Please make it stop.
I would tell little Timmy that if you want to play a dedicated Planeswalker deck where you jam like a lot of Planeswalkers, in reality, you're probably going to be playing a board wipe deck where you're going to play a lot of board wipes because they don't affect you. And if you want to go kill all the things plus my walker, kill all the things plus my walker, kill all the things alt my walker, and that's what you want to do, go for a little Timmy. If not, I would say play a goad deck.
Goad is incredibly good.
Yeah, goad is really fun. It's a great way to get people to attack other things and let your planeswalkers kind of chill and do other stuff.
Even in a 1v1 situation, don't they have to attack you, the player, if they goad? So they can't even attack your planeswalker. I'm pretty sure it says that they attack a player other than you if able, not a player or planeswalker that player controls. So you can't if your creature's goaded, yes. You can't even attack a planeswalker.
Not a planeswalker or battle. Don't forget battles.
Oh, of course, yeah. Who could forget that plentiful card type?
Yes. I love battles. But also I love goad. And yeah, goad is a sweet way to make use of planeswalkers. And you also aren't archenemy number one. I feel like if you're playing a planeswalker deck and people are like, oh, he's going to cast 50 board wipes, we have to beat him up.
Yeah, if Mr. Board Wipe comes to the table, people are going to kill you really fast.
Yeah, exactly. You know, they're going to be attacking your planeswalkers, and they're going to attack you, and then they're going to attack your planeswalker again, and then they're going to attack you again. So it's going to be a safer way to not get just like steamrolled. Okay, next, we're moving to the question zone, which new year, new zone. We're renaming it to Beseech the Mirror, where you beseech us your questions. Now, although that is the name of the segment, we had people vote what they wanted to type in the comments for us to search up your questions. So, no longer, if you want to ask us a question, don't type question zone. Instead, type mirror, mirror, and then you ask the question to the mirror. And I was tallying the votes, it's like 11 to 10. It was literally like one off between mirror, mirror,
always
beseech
vote.
the mirror. Always vote. If you're a big beseech the mirror fan, you know, you could have had that.
Well, wonderful. Let's get into some questions then.
C. Bradford asks, where do you place yourselves on the color pie? Not your favorite colors, but which color or colors do you feel best represent your individual worldviews, goals, and personalities?
Oh man, just like spontaneous, like have to think of it.
Okay, you think? I'll give my answer. I'm waiting for you to say Rakdos.
I am gonna say Rakdos, I think.
Oh, he's crazy.
Well, like literally, so like I'm not like, ooh, I'm unhinged. We live in a society. I'm Rakdos. No, it's a lot more like I'm very impulsive. I'm very ambitious. Like my life is like always in chaos. I'm just kind of in the moment.
Right. You live in a clown tent.
Yeah, no, I have clown makeup on. I look in the mirror every morning. I put it on. No, but like generally, like, yeah, I agree with like, or I identify at least with the impulsivity of red, with the ambitiousness of black. And, you know, they also just have really good aesthetics. And I'm a bit of a performer, you know. I feel like most like people who put themselves out there are going to be, you know, Rakdos-y, because Rakdos in a way is also about performance. And that is kind of like what streaming is and what, like, you know, making videos is. Like, if I didn't have a performative streak in me, I wouldn't be doing all this.
Yeah, I feel like Rakdos fits you. That's why I said it. You know, I was thinking, I can't say anything else for you. Before I give my answer, do you want to guess what I'm going to say?
God, like, your favorite color combo is, like, probably Izzet. I think you're a real Azorius guy. Maybe Jeskai.
Interesting. My favorite color combo is probably Izzet. I mean, Grixis is like also great. I feel like in my mind, I want to be a cool Izzet guy or a cool Dimir guy. But I think I'm actually just mono blue. I think I'm just mono blue. I'm like pretty laid back. I don't think I'm really demure, is it? But I do like, associate myself with blue, not just like playing the game, but like mentally, I guess, or based on vibes. So yeah, just mono blue.
Snail is 100% like Gruul in real life too, by the way. Like, right? We can agree on this.
Oh yeah, he's like 6'8" and jacked. And smashes things.
No, not like even physically. I just think of Snail as really like Spartan. You know what I mean? Just like when I think of Snail's like deck building style, it's like I built this deck to get the job done. And I'm like, you know what, Alex, go ham. I think he's a real Gruul mage.
I disagree, actually. All right. Salubrious Snail fans in the comment, let's debate this. If we had to put him on the personality color pie, where would you put him? And I think he's not Gruul. I actually think he is much more like calculating than Gruul is. I think he's like not quite Simic. I want to say Bant. Does that sound weird? I don't know. I think he's Bant.
I don't know. I have played against a Snail deck before, and I just got like smushed. It was awesome.
We still haven't played a game of Magic against him, right?
I have.
Oh, you have? Okay. I've played Commander with you like once. I think a lot of people find this like kind of funny when I mention it in the comments, but they're like, "You guys don't play Commander together all the time?" No, we don't.
Well, we're gonna start eventually here. I can actually get a spell table started, but I think it helps a little bit that we don't play together because we get like we all have our own pods that we like play with and like game stores and stuff. So we're like from 3 separate environments, bunch of different point of views.
I think that's something I really enjoy about this podcast is that you two can both say something and I'm like, I've never seen any of the local game stores I've done do that. Whereas no hate to like Goldfish or anything, but like their meta is very inbred because they play against themselves a lot.
Oh yeah.
So they reference their own games and their own playstyles and stuff, and like that's all totally fine.
Oh yeah, no, like, I love Tomer.
It's like a different thing.
Yeah,
they're all they're all great. I have nothing against them, but it's just that's kind of like it's a different perspective. Okay, that was a great question. Thank you, C_Bradford. Their profile pic is like a smirk, and I don't know if that's like a streamer or if it's them or whatever, but it's always really funny. Okay, question zone. The next question is from Kamen Rider Greed. Mirror, how do you build/brew decks that are outside of your comfort zone? I ask because I've noticed most of the decks I brew and have considered legitimately building in paper have black in their color identity. I want to not limit myself to that when I find different commanders to casually brew around.
So for me, brewing outside of my comfort zone, I mean, it's tough because I don't really consider a lot out of my comfort zone. I play a lot of limited. I play a lot of like 60 card formats and stuff like this. I consume a lot of Magic the Gathering media. I play a lot of Magic in general. And the honest truth is I like most decks. I can play just about anything. But I feel like the best piece of advice when it comes to starting a deck, especially in a zone that you're not familiar with, is find what makes you interested in it. That's the first thing you have to identify is what makes this fun for you. So, for example, a Storm deck. For me, it's Sentinel Tower. I love that card. Sentinel Tower is a 4-mana artifact that's kind of like a reverse Aetherflux Reservoir if you're casting spells. So you cast your first spell, you get to deal 1 damage to any target. You cast your second spell, you get to deal 2 damage to any target. You cast your third spell, you get to deal 3 damage to any target. And then it keeps going up for each spell you cast. So it's a really good Storm payoff if you get to play it and untap with it. The thing is that really interests me. So when I'm building my Storm deck, I'm going to be building with that card in mind. So I would look at Virtue of Courage from Wilds of Eldraine. This is an enchantment that says whenever an opponent is dealt non-combat damage, you exile that many cards from the top of your deck and you get to play them that turn. That's really funny with with Sentinel Tower, because you ping someone for 4, you exile the top 4, you get to play them. Ritual. I ping you for 5 and then 6. I get to exile the top 5 and then the top 6, and then you're storming. So this is what a really fun storm deck to me would look like. Your storm deck might be different. You might be more focused on twiddles, right? Untapped a land that taps for more mana than it produces when untapped. Or you're doing like Storm. What's the name of the otter? Storm Splitter. 3 in a red for a 1/4 otter that when you cast a spell makes a copy. And then you have something like Cryptolith Rite in a Gruul deck where you can tap those Storm Splitters for mana right away. So you can then cast a bunch of spells, tapping the Storm Splitters for mana, until eventually you Stormwind. So those are 3 entirely different directions for Storm, where normally you wouldn't have played Storm, but because of these different synergies within Storm, you can feel a lot more comfortable because you can find exactly what makes it fun.
I think if you are going to get out of your comfort zone, you should force yourself. So I would say, think about what you think the lamest, most dumb, worthless, annoying, stupid deck is. Like, think about that. Like, the deck that you see when your opponent plays and you're like, oh, that sucks, right? And then go, like, I don't know, like 3 notches down from that and think of what that is and build it. Just build the deck. And start with like a budget version. Like, go ultra budget for this, So for me, I really, really hate like no win condition chaos decks. Okay, let's go a little bit, beyond no win condition chaos decks. What's something else that I really don't like? Well, they're usually kind of like red decks that have a lot of like random drawing and discarding, and then maybe I'd build something in that realm, maybe like a red aggro kind of deck, and then you build that and build like an ultra budget version and just see how you enjoy the play patterns. You try and build like a $25 deck, like challenge yourself for something, and that is one, just like a fun deck building challenge, I think. And then 2, you kind of now have this new deck that you can think about, like, what aspects of this do I like or not like, and go from there.
Yeah, this is part of what I really love about Limited and Cube, is you really get to sample like everything Magic has to offer, because green is just the only color that isn't getting picked. You are in green now. Even if you hate the color, you can't stand green, you don't want to cast a land anywhere else in your life, you play what you open. And ultimately, that's why I really like, limited environments like that, is because it really does actually force you to play with every card in Magic versus just the ones that you actually want to play with.
Okay, the next question. And this one I actually already replied to, but I kind of want to hear your opinion as well. So Question Zone. At my LGS, there's a Commander Night where you pay $7 for entry, and there's points that grant payouts at the end of the month. There's a bunch of rules to prevent CDH level decks from ruining pods, but my deck often earns a large amount of complaints, so much so that the rules are changing to neuter Zoldok's effect. What do you think I should do to reduce complaints in my pods?
So
I already. Oh, sorry.
So you want to read Zul'Adok?
Yeah, sure, we can read Zul'Adok. So Zul'Adok is colorless spells you cast from hand have mana values with mana value 7 or greater, have Cascade. So it's just like a colorless big ramp deck.
Yeah, so it's big stupid Eldrazi.
I already have deck building restrictions and such, but I don't think players are running enough removal. I can't proxy a deck because it's a WPN store, and I can't buy a new deck because it's financially irresponsible right now. I've been offered to play other players' decks, but there's something about that isn't fun for me.
Yeah, this is just like a tough situation. Like, okay, Zul'Adok, I don't know, it's not my kind of card. It's just kind of like vomit. You ramp and then you just get like, you slam big monsters, which fair, right? Like, people like that. People like ramping and then throwing up big monsters on the board. I can't blame you, right? This is the format to be doing it. The thing is like, I agree that this deck kind of just folds to removal, like, pretty easily. If Zul'Adok gets removed, then you're not getting card advantage off your big Eldrazi. If someone plays like Stony Silence, you're probably just scooping up your cards. Vandal Blast, you're like Stone Age. Like, any way to deal with your artifacts. Because I imagine artifacts are the main way you're ramping. It's just tough. Just like maybe like, I don't know. Because you don't want to give unsolicited advice to people. That's like, kind of it can come off as BME, and then also just like generally can be annoying. But also it's just like Zul'Adok isn't that good of a card. I don't know what to say. This is a very tough situation.
Yeah, so I mean, I think this is like, I mean, this is obviously really specific, right? Because in the comment they mentioned that they're changing the rules to affect your commander specifically, which is crazy. And I'm just gonna, I'll probably make a video about this at some point. But as like a blanket statement, non-CDH commander paid tournaments suck. They are not good. This is like something that no store should do. They lead to bad everything. You should just play CDH at that point.
Yeah, I work at a game store. Elysium Games in Denver, Colorado. We're like in the Lakewood area. Come check us out. We play Commander every Friday night at 6 p.m. Haha. But there was like an idea tossed around of like, ooh, paid entry Commander nights. And we can have like a board and like, we can like, track wins and, give prize packs. And I was like, no, like I think Commander free play should just be Commander free play. And, people can show up and, bring their decks and not feel pressured to have to win or try that hard or, entry fees, stuff like this. It just leads to these situations where like no one feels really good because like someone won. And it's like, oh, your deck's too strong. Oh, we're going to complain to the store. Now the store has a whiteboard of all the cards that are... You're going to end up with a Gamer's Wharf situation, if you know what that is. But anyway, like, I don't know. It's just not a good situation to have. And I don't envy your position.
Yeah, I would say maybe talk to the store owner. Because I feel like if this is a small enough store where they're going to make rules to, like, bully you and your commander specifically, I would talk to the store owner. I think this is a lot of players may not realize this as like general advice, but if you have an issue at the game store, most game stores are pretty small businesses. You can actually just talk to the owner, right?
Yeah.
And be like, hey, I'm having this issue. I mean, obviously it depends on the store, but like, if that's an option, I would take that. I also mentioned this in I replied to the comment earlier. You could try and make like a really budget like mono green stompy, which I think is still pretty powerful, and you can do on a budget. And if they don't play removal, you'll still get wins, and maybe it will be less scary. That's my thought.
Oh yeah, don't discount budget brewing. There's a lot of fun to be had.
Okay, that is all of the questions that I think we'll be answering in this podcast. But I did want to mention one other thing that somebody said. And they suggested that when players or viewers write their comment, they should say, mirror, mirror, I beseech thee, and then they add a cost, what they're spending for the question. So I have discarded 2 cards from my hand to gain your wisdom. And I think it's a bit silly to do and ask everybody to do that. That's like a lot, and you have to like think about it. But for real, mirror heads out there, if you're here at the end of this podcast, you're hearing me say this, feel free to, in the comments, type mirror, mirror, I spend double blue and sacrifice a non-token creature to ask you, and you put that in your comment, that's great. Don't explain it. If anybody replies and is like, what the hell are you saying? Don't explain it. Oh, yeah. That could be way funnier.
And make sure you go back into previous episodes and watch in 0.25 speed to make sure that no one else used the one that you're using. So that way, and you right click on the video and click loop, and then you can, and make sure ad block is off. So just to make sure that, of course, that that no one else has used the comment before the cost that you're sacrificing, obviously.
Should we end the podcast?